Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here, and tonight we're talking Mr. Bears. Yes, we're going to the depths of your soul. We're going to the dark trenches of Disney parks. We're going on an extra terrestrial retrospective on the Alien Encounter. And with me is your co-host and judge of the Creator Games, the latest and greatest, so you want WDW Magic Imagineering Competition. Give it up, everyone, for Space Mountain. How you doing?
Good. Glad to be here, Tiki.
Right on, right on. Well, we had a lot of fun with our first kind of cast assessment. There was a few bumps along the way, but we won't get into that. I think it's just kind of cool to, just go on through, and I think this was a really fun project for you guys to set us with, which was essentially what I'm getting out of this project and what I'm trying to do with it on a personal level is like to replace something with Alien Encounter. You have to kind of have the same format, the same sort of setup in the theater, and just do a different thing with it. So it's been really fun. But I'm going to turn it to you. Do you want to explain briefly what we're doing and why we're covering Alien Encounter in conjunction with the Creator Games?
Sure. So the point of why this is the first of several, hopefully, web series about taking a historical retrospective about the competition challenges themselves. So this week's challenge is to replace Stitch's Great Escape in Tomorrowland in Disney World. And the building itself, the Tomorrowland, I don't know if it's called the North or South building, but it's one of those buildings on the left-hand side as you're walking from the hub into Tomorrowland. And it's housed of several variety of attractions. And we wanted to take a look and say how those attractions evolved, how one led into the other, and maybe segue into what we all want to do with our new competition challenges now. So that's basically why we're doing these.
All right, yeah, sounds good, and I'm really excited to be on board for this. I was really pleased when you approached me for this concept because, I love doing our TV show recaps and whatnot here on So You Want to Be an Imagineer YouTube channel, but really, at the heart of it, what I want to do is I want to get back more into podcasting about theme parks and podcasting about Disney and stuff like that, and I feel like me doing this for you guys and you guys kind of giving me an avenue to do more Disney theme park podcasts on my channel. It's just a win-win situation all around. So I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'm a huge history buff for Disney World and Disney in general. I really enjoy the parks, and I really enjoy how the Imagineers and the people at Disney put so much effort and thought into each thing. And we'll probably get into it here, how there's so many little Easter eggs in every little ride and so many hints to past attractions if a new attraction takes its place. And I always found that pretty interesting, how they never really forget the past.
Yeah, the best of Disney parks definitely have like some sort of continuity to them. Yeah, exactly. Like I would say Animal Kingdom is a primary example of that, where I'm just gonna just pretend that Chester and Hester's Dino-Rama just doesn't exist. And, and the rest of that park is like beautifully put together in terms of like you've got the oasis and the tree of life right in the center, and then all the individual continents. It's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say I hope even while Avatar is a whole nother discussion whether or not it fits in the park, from the concept arts that I've seen, it looks pretty great. The theming of it looks great.
I just hate that they're calling it Avatar Land.
I think they're doing it Avatar or something like the World of Pandora or something. Or Pandora, the World of Avatar is the official name for it, I think.
Pandora, the world. Just call it Pandora.
Yeah,
that's my thing. Just call it Pandora. Seriously.
I would have been more for Beastly Kingdom, the original concept. That looked pretty cool. Or I'd go for something like Australia or another continent to fat in, but that's a whole nother topic.
Australia's been long rumored, and then of course we could get our awesome hyper e-ticket rescuers down under thrill ride. Hell yeah!
They can actually move Finding Nemo into a reasonable spot in a park.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's get into the topic at hand. So this is kind of an interesting, as you said, like I feel like a lot of the buildings in your guys' Tomorrowland has hosted variety of different attractions. I mean, of course, we had that. Like how many of those like Delta Dream Flight dark rides did you guys have in that one location?
Yeah, there was a lot. There's been a lot of changeover in Tomorrowland. I think that's necessary for the concept of Tomorrowland because you can't have, aside from like a flagship attraction like Space Mountain, where you can't really change that. There are a lot of other attractions where they have to evolve over the years, or else they're going to not be about Tomorrowland. They're not going to be about the future. They're going to be about the past. And I think that's just a natural thing about that land, which has its pros and cons because I've gone to Disneyland a couple of times, and I think the one, and maybe you can talk more about this too, the one land that really needs some help is Tomorrowland because I feel
Oh
like
God, yes. Oh my God.
it's just a hodgepodge of stuff, and I think that that's because they haven't taken a lot
There's
of
no theme to it. There's no overall cohesive atmosphere to it at all. It's just a bunch of metal and concrete everywhere. It's really not good.
The first time I went
Space
there,
Mountain, of course, is a brilliant ride, and I feel like Space Mountain sucks you into the atmosphere of that ride adequately. Other than that, it's pretty weak.
yeah, the first time I went there, I remember walking from the hub the way that I usually do in Disney World, and I just walked right into the Astro Orbiter, which was very
Like,
odd.
hello.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm used to it being on top of the Transit Authority, and now it's just sitting there like Dumbo right in front of me as I'm walking out. It's like, all right. So then I keep walking in and I see Star Tours.
Imagineers are just like, we're just going to create this giant bottleneck right in the middle of our park entrance or our land entrance. It makes no sense.
And then Star Tours, I don't even understand because Star Wars is a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I don't
I'll take
understand.
Star Wars any day over Buzz Lightyear or Monsters Inc.
I don't think those fit either. That's a whole other.
Like, I think at least with Star Wars, they are in space.
At least they got half of it right.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like Star Wars happened a long time ago, according to the canon, which was just, I don't know. I feel like they could fit.
It happened a long time ago, but in what dimension?
That's true too. Because if you've seen Interstellar, I don't know if you've seen that movie. They talk.
Oh
about
yeah.
and all that stuff.
Okay.
That's cool.
All right. So Flight to the Moon and Mission to Mars. There's not really a ton to say about that. So let's start with Flight to the Moon. And from what I know of the Disneyland version, and I'm sure it was probably around the same experience that you guys got in 1971 with the Magic Kingdom, was the whole thing was basically like a round theater that you went into. And the effect was basically like, I've heard people kind of describe it as being in the middle of a giant washing machine. So like the seats would all vibrate and stuff, and you had like those two screens, if I remember correctly, that one showed like the bottom of the rocket and one showed the top of the rocket, and it was meant to simulate like going up. I don't know.
Yeah, so it was like it's the same type of theater as there is today. The only difference is if anyone's ridden Sitch or Alien Encounter, they had that giant tube in the middle. That wasn't there, and there was just a screen at the bottom, and everyone was circled, sitting in like a 360-degree circle, looking either down at the screen on the floor, which would show Earth, you leaving Earth, or the screens on the sides of the building that'll show you the outside of your ship, which was what you were in. But yeah, it started in Disneyland. The ride called Rocket to the Moon opened in 1955, and then it was eventually transformed into Flight to the Moon, which is, I guess, because in the late 60s, that was when the space race was going on. And
Oh yeah.
Apollo missions. I think the Apollo landed July 20th, 1969.
69,
so, So that was like a huge, I'm sure that drove to that attraction a lot of popularity for that time.
Yeah, it's interesting how that one particular attraction in Disneyland like mirrored so much of what was going on from a current event perspective. And in a way, you can kind of say that that was the first attraction that really sort of was like, okay, Tomorrowland suddenly became Todayland. And in this light, it was kind of cool because it was like, holy crap, something that we had in Tomorrowland has now caught up with reality, and now it's like converging in this really weird way. But, you know, you got to admit, now that we do have flights to the moon going on, you know, lunar navigations and stuff like that, lunar expeditions, did that kind of, obviously that must have, by the time that the whole space race thrill wore off, you definitely got to think that that sort of hit a fatigue of, you know, of flights to the moon in general.
Oh, absolutely. So the original idea was because Disney World, so the flight to the moon in Disneyland opened 1967. The moon landing was 1969. And Disney World wanted to take Flight to the Moon and open it up with the Magic Kingdom in 1971. But then after a while, there's only so many times, like you said, before the moon landing gets uninteresting, because then people are like, all right, we went there. Where are we going now? So I think that was one of the reasons why they switched it. Basically the same concept. Flight to the Moon was Mission to Mars, which it eventually transformed into.
Yeah, Mission to Mars, it was definitely a step above Flight to the Moon in terms of one thing that you can definitely note it for was having an elaborate pre-show, which introduced us to the likes of Mr. Tom Arrow. At the time, he was a human-looking audio animatronic character, a professor sort of character. And nowadays, I know him as Tom Morrow from Innoventions, the crazy robot Jar Jar Binks guy. And I don't think he's going to be around for much longer because of what I've been hearing about the fate of Innoventions.
Yeah, I know that. I don't know was that the Stark Expo that's going in there, or was that just a temporary thing?
Basically, Innoventions has just turned into a rotating like exhibit of temporary things.
Yeah, they can do the Marvel stuff out there, right?
Yeah, they can, but I feel like that's being cheap though, but that's a whole different conversation.
That's yeah. So yeah, that's how Tom Morrow is for any of the Disney World people out there. He's the guy on the old TTA where they said paging Mr. Morrow.
And he's also in the Star Tours queue. I'm not sure if he's in the 2.0 queue or the Adventure Continues, but he was definitely in the original Star Tours queue.
Okay.
Tom Arrow, paging Mr. Tom Arrow.
Yeah, that's a good, nice play on words there. And I think that's pretty fun when they use that in today in other attractions too.
It's kind of a neat little way to kind of give Tomorrowland its own sort of cohesion in a way.
Yeah, that's what I liked about, and then again, this is a whole nother conversation, but when they redid the Transit Authority in, I think it was 2009 or something, when they redid Space Mountain and Disney World, they kind of took away that whole story aspect that I liked, where they would show how the TTA was the blue line, which was local transportation, but then there was the green line that went out to the suburbs and the red line that went other places. And they kind of took that stuff, they kind of took the cohesion of that away a little bit.
Which to me kind of sounds like a obvious throwback to what Walt wanted to do with the People Movers at Epcot.
Oh, absolutely. They still have the old, the City of the Future model.
I'm sure they
on
do.
The Transit Authority. So after you pass the Sitch building and you go inside, on the left-hand side, you see the Project City model, which is always pretty cool.
Because what better way to house a project of the City of Tomorrow model than in an attraction that's all about chili dogs.
Yeah. That definitely plays it up well.
Okay. So from what you remember, is there any sort of big distinctions between Mission to Mars and Flight to the Moon?
I think other than a couple of special effects enhancements, because Flight to the Moon in Disney World was about 4 years. It opened on December 24th, 1971, and then closed, and then Mission to Mars opened June 7th, 1975. Wasn't
Oh
really a lot
wow.
of change, except for the fact that they changed the story. Um,
Okay. Okay.
I think they might have even changed Tom Morrow at that point to Mr. Johnson. But I'm not, I have to. I think that's what they did.
I don't know. I could be mixing this up, but if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure. Oh gosh, again, I could very much be mixing this
It
up,
might have
but
been the other way. I know there were two of them. I know there was Mr. Johnson was the operations director at one point, and then Tom.
I honestly thought that Mr. Johnson was the flight director from Flight to the Moon.
He might be. I might have just mixed that up. But
Mm.
either way, it's basically the same premise where the guests or stand and watch a pre-show, which is watching AA technicians in mission control for NASA, and they're talking about how they're flying to Mars as opposed to flying to the moon, and then they go into the same theaters, and the concept was a little bit changed at this point, where your ship is hit by like some volcanic eruption or something, and it has to go
Okay.
back to Earth. But it's
So
basically
it's not like Flight to the Moon, because Flight to the Moon, from what I understand, is very much a serene sort of not much happens kind of experience where it's like, okay, we're going up to the moon now.
yeah, it's more about
The moon.
the novelty of the moon itself. But then
Sure.
once that dies off, you have to step it up a little bit. And I guess that's what they tried to do here. And I think it might have been the same technology, but I read that the seats were filled with compressed air to simulate.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is a little bit more of a twist for sure.
Yeah, so you feel a little bit more of the shaking, and actually there's an attraction now at Kennedy Space Center in Florida
Oh yeah.
that kind of does a similar thing to this, where the pre-show is watching mission control. It's called Shuttle Experience or something.
Mhm.
It's a little, obviously it's a little bit more high tech than what was in the mid 70s, but it basically does the same thing, that simulates your flight to space, simulates a takeoff.
Right. Right. Okay, but it sounds like Mission to Mars is definitely they were trying to definitely insert more of a thrill element into what was originally a more educational kind of thing.
I would agree with that. Yeah, they tried to make it a more of an attraction, so to speak, than a narrative.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
All right. Is that all we have to say about those two attractions? I kind of feel like we've been slept. I guess in Disneyland, all I have to say about those two, obviously very similar, if not complete clones of the attractions that were in Disney World. And guess what? Now it's just freaking Red Rocket's Pizza Port. It was going to be Alien Encounter, but no, Disneyland Paris had to happen, and so now it's just Red Rocket's Pizza Port.
And it was closed for a while. It closed November 2nd, 1992, after being open for almost 20 years.
What, Mission to Mars?
Mission to Mars, yeah. And then it was closed until 98, when it was finally open as the Pizza Port. So that was a long time for the building.
Right. And then what about on your guys' side? What was the vacancy in between Mission to Mars and Alien Encounter?
That was actually much quicker. So the changeover rate was less than 2 years. So
oh wow, okay.
Which is basically meaning that once they shut down Mission to Mars, they started with Alien Encounter. So Mission to Mars closed October 4th, 93, which is basically a year after Mission to Mars closed in Disneyland. Then Alien Encounter opened up June 20th, 1995.
Okay, so now let's get into kind of like the complicated sort of backstory with Alien Encounter. Do you want to explain some of that, like the all the drama surrounding whether or not they were going to use the xenomorphs from Aliens or not?
Oh yeah, so I guess in this time, one of the Disney criteria was to not base anything off of. It was originally going to be called Nostromo, which was a reference to Alien. I think it was the spacecraft in Alien.
Yeah. Which I think would have been a fascinating title for an attraction.
Oh, absolutely. But one of the rules of thumbs that they had was that the attractions are supposed to be G rated, sort of. And
Indiana Jones.
yeah, so I don't know who was running.
I mean, I get that Indiana Jones is PG-13 and Aliens is R, but still, you have aliens in the Great Movie Ride, so it's
Oh,
like,
yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
what I was going to say too. One of the main thing, and the Great Movie Ride was one of the opening attractions for MGM Studios. So it was already
Exactly.
open by that point. So I don't understand what the hubbub was.
So yeah, you already have a Disney park and an attraction which depicts xenomorphs.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I guess one of the people in the boardroom decided that it wasn't going to happen. So basically, they got George Lucas to work on the project, and his version of the story had this tech company in another galaxy called XS Tech, and they were basically scientists that, well, as there's the ride gets a little bit more complicated as it goes along.
This is one of my complaints of the ride is I do feel like the ride has too many side characters to keep track of.
Yeah, I think the overall premise is easy to follow, but if you want to get into the nitty-gritty stuff, that's where it gets a little bit more complicated.
Which is what I'm saying. Like, I almost kind of feel like the Access company could have like had like a Saturday morning cartoon show or something to to really flesh out those characters, because
Yeah.
I don't know, that's another thing is that those characters, they're the one thing that don't really do it for me in the ride, because I feel like the ride is obviously all about atmosphere, and then you have certain scenes where there's that scene where the alien first appears and one of the guys is like, oh, it's carnivorous. And then the guy's like, you mean it eats meat? I'm like, I don't know. I just think humor like that is just kind of like, what are you going for? This is a terrifying experience that you're in the middle of, but I don't think just cracking a corny one-liner is going to make people any less upset. But anyways, back to the development of this.
Yeah, they're already terrified as it is. But so getting back to how it started. So there's this tech company that also the building itself at this point was renamed to the Tomorrowland Interplanetary Convention Center.
And I love this idea. And do you want to talk a little bit about this this new Tomorrowland that you guys had for a while that kind of had this big continuity between the Tomorrowland Transit Authority and then Space Mountain, Timekeeper, and Alien Encounter and all this? Because when I was doing research on this, I was really blown away at just, before the Buzz Lightyears and the Monsters Inc. and the Stitches kind of ruled their ugly faces, your guys' Tomorrowland really was an incredibly cohesive storytelling land.
Yeah, it really was. I remember when I was a kid, it was probably my favorite land in all of Disney World, just because the music was great when you walk in. I mean, it's still the same music today, but the atmosphere and how it changed, how at night it just completely was a different place than what was before with all the neon lights and everything.
Right, yeah, and I got the feeling just researching it that it really did feel like a genuine, like, living, breathing city environment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was a pretty cool. It still is kind of cool, but I just wish they didn't include all the IPs that they do.
Yeah, the IPs are definitely the big thing that's kind of dragging it down these days.
Yeah. I mean, there's some IPs that might work in there, but I don't think Monsters Inc. is the best one to work in there.
I don't think Monsters Inc. is the best IP, period. But that's a different discussion.
Yeah.
I mean, where's that door coaster that they're always promising us? Like,
yeah,
seriously, if you're going to do a Monsters Inc. ride, then do that damn door coaster that you're always teasing and you never deliver on.
It was something that was originally, so when Toy Story Midway Mania opened in 2008, that was one of the rumored attractions to go right next to it. There's an open slot. It used to be Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, that whole backlot there.
You're talking Hollywood Studios, right?
Hollywood Studios, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So it was originally planned for that. But then I guess budget cuts or something else,
Yeah,
Uh,
basically same thing happened at Disneyland, because at Disneyland there was going to be like or California Adventure more specifically, there was going to be, that whole backlot area of the Hollywood area
it's
where
gonna
you
be like
had,
Monstropolis or something.
yeah, exactly, where you had the you had the Monsters Inc. Dark Ride, and then you also had the old Superstar or Who Wants to Be a Millionaire building. And assuming that they're going to rip off the Muppets, which they're probably going to, you would have had that too. You would have
Yeah.
had the old Hollywood and Dine building, and you could have really done something with that. But I guess, again, alas, just budget cuts. So what are you going to do?
When in doubt, it's usually budget cuts.
Although I have to say, I don't necessarily think a full-blown Monsters Inc. land would have worked the best for California Adventure anyways.
I don't really think it's the best to flesh out. I mean, I guess Cars wasn't really my favorite Pixar movie when it came
But Cars has a beautiful environment to it.
Exactly.
Even watching that movie, you can't deny that.
It has substance to make a land around, whereas Monsters Inc. they never really showed any. I mean, if you're gonna make a Monsters Inc. land, I mean, what are you gonna base it around that is gonna be so memorable that people are gonna be like, oh wow? Or, I mean, the factory. You're just gonna build.
Well, like I said, I think the one ace in the hole that they do have with that property is the door coaster. If they could find some way to make that work, then that would be super cool.
That'd be a great ride if they did that, but nevertheless.
Yeah.
There's always things that go wrong.
Okay, so now getting back into Alien Encounter, do you want to talk about any sort of I just feel like we kind of skipped over like the whole concept of Monstromo, because oddly enough, it was actually going to be a dark ride and not a theater experience. Now, what do you think that would have been like?
That would have been, I feel like it's going to be pretty similar to what the Great Movie Ride was, where you're going through the ship or something like that, and you're trying to escape the alien itself.
But I forgot to mention, though, there was also going to be like these Buzz Lightyear style kind of like laser blasters that you could shoot the aliens with.
Yeah, that would have been a pretty cool concept. Now, would that have gone in the theater itself, or would that have replaced the Delta Dream Flight area?
I believe that would have gone in the theater itself.
Oh, okay. So they would have taken the whole thing out.
Yeah. Okay, but then, Eisner kind of put the kibosh on using xenomorphs in general, just because of the whole, it's R-rated, but we could debate about that. I mean, I do kind of see where he's coming from, because what the Imagineers were going at is, people being familiar with the Aliens franchise in general, and, let's face it, I would hope that kids of that era weren't very familiar with the Aliens franchise, because the Alien franchise is terrifying.
Yeah.
So, but it's odd, because now I feel like we're getting into when the Imagineers actually started developing the attraction and had to use their creativity. And for my money, that messed up freaking like praying mantis on steroids thing that they actually designed is like 10 times scarier than a xenomorph.
Yeah, I agree. It was pretty, as a kid, it was pretty terrifying. But I mean, also cool at the same time, the way that they set up the attraction, because I think as a kid, you're just sitting there, and I guess we can get into more of the ride itself as you're walking through. So there's kind of two pre-shows to the ride. One outside of the attraction where you're waiting under the transit authority, and you're watching the TVs on the side, and that's where they talk about how Excess Tech is doing demonstration in the Interplanetary Convention Center. You hear Chairman Clench talk about the company and talking it up to say something like, if it can't be done with excess, it can't be done at all. And then I also like how they have some nice Easter eggs in there too. One of the convention center conferences or whatever is Mission to Mars, a history or hoax, which I thought was a good.
Oh, really?
Easter egg.
Oh, that's cool.
So as you were watching the TV, that would come up as one of the convention conferences. But then you get inside,
And this is where the messed up stuff starts to happen.
Yeah. That's where you meet the robot Sir, who's actually voiced by Tim Curry, that guy in the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah, give it up to Tim Curry. Give it up, because whenever he does a vocal performance, it's amazing and terrifying.
Yeah, and his role in the pre-show is basically to explain how they're going to bring the people from Excess to the theater itself. So they're talking about teleportation. So the demonstration is with a alien named Skippy, and basically what he does is he takes Skippy in one tank on the left-hand side of the pre-show, which is what people are watching, and teleports his particles to the tube on the right side of the pre-show. And then he talks about how, let me just send them back. So that's where it gets a little bit dark, because you see Skippy continuously gets more and more deformed and dark as he transports. So you can tell that it's not the same thing transporting back and forth.
For kids.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so
it's like a more disturbing version of the scene in Roger Rabbit with the dip.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh god, yeah.
The imagery in that pre-show is a little bit mature, but
and that's not even the ride. Like, this is like the comic relief pre-show portion of the ride.
Yeah, yeah, and then you get into the theater. So there's two theaters as you walk in, one on the left side, one on the right side. It's the same thing on both sides. But when you get in, you're listening to an expose from two of the Excess Tech employees, Spinlock and Dr. Femus, who are communicating with the audience via live screens, which are the same screens. If you remember, we were talking about Mission to Mars. They're in the same type of areas as those.
Okay, I gotcha. Right.
So they kind of use the same design and stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting how, like, the theater itself, I mean, it very much is sort of like the same general layout as the Mission to Mars / Flight to the Moon theater. Of course, the one exception being the damn over-the-shoulder restraints that make the seats look like torture devices. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so that was something that was, you're right, that was something that was definitely changed. One of the things, as you first walk in, the harnesses, there would be an announcement, and the harnesses would come down automatically to vary your height, which actually there was a height restriction to this ride. I think it was 44 inches you had to be. Because
so I guess I assume, like, if you weren't tall enough, then you'd be able to slip down under the harness.
Yeah, so either that or the fact that...
so, we can't have that. We can't have you escaping the ride.
But also, I think that had to do something with, maybe so that 3-year-olds and 2-year-olds can't go on the ride.
Oh, yeah, well, that makes sense. I mean, although I'd wager to say that, like, me as a 10-year-old would have been freaked the hell out on this thing. Okay.
So then they talk about how, they're going to bring one of the audience members to, they're selecting an audience member to bring to Excess. But instead, the guy who was talking in the first pre-show, Chairman Clinch, walks into the two technicians and says, I'm going to seize the future and I'm going to go directly to them. So,
seize the future is like the most important quote in the whole attraction, I would say.
And that's why I wanted to use, when we did that video, I wanted to use the song Seize the Future, because I feel like that's the main theme of the ride in general.
It really is, yeah.
So he says, so the two technicians are like, oh, we don't know if we can do this. And he goes, oh, nonsense, just do it. But instead of Chairman Clinch being transported, a planet gets in the way of the teleportation signal. And instead of him being transported, Alien is transported into the tube. into the audience, and that's when all the chaos starts.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Now I love the buildup of this. I love how just how theatrical it is, because once the alien's there, the lighting is absolutely outstanding in terms of like you see just enough of the alien to know that he's there, to know that he's real, but you're not seeing enough of him to where you're getting like a fully fleshed out, like, okay, I know exactly what it looks like. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. That was
It plays on your senses.
It does. It's kind of like it's a really good horror movie, basically, because it never.
Essentially, yeah.
The scariest part of the whole ride is your imagination. Because if you knew what was going on, you'd be like, oh, it's just audio animatronic. But the way that the lighting and the sound and the subwoofers in the seat make you feel that, and the darkness too, makes you feel like you're a part of the action.
Yeah, so then the ride just essentially plunges into pitch blackness for like a good solid 3 or 4 minutes, right?
Yeah, so basically the alien escapes the tube, and you can hear, there's binaural audio subwoofers behind you, so it makes you feel like the alien's running around the theater. And then it gets into some of the pipes, or it gets into some of the stuff on top of the theater, and they send in one of the technicians to go find him.
I like the use of the flashlight too. It's just kind of a very cool kind of lighting trick.
Yeah, I think he's oh, they send him to go turn the power back on, because when he breaks the tube, the power goes off.
Right.
What I call the darkness. But then he says, since when does Chairman Clench have wings? And that's when they realize that.
Oh God.
Or no, never mind. That was in the beginning when they realize that he's not in the tube. But then then you see on the screens the guy going to look for the power switch, and the alien with wings is right there and eats him. But then the really scary part is when he eats him, on the back of your neck, they breathe out hot air, so it feels like the alien is right behind you.
Now, I want to talk about that, those kind of sensory elements that we don't really get when we're just watching when we're just watching the video on YouTube. So can you kind of like try and describe to the best of your ability what it was like? Like, because I know there was effects like blood dripping down on you, and then like, like saliva and stuff like that. Like, how did they do it?
It was kind of like they just squirted. What if the lights were on, it wouldn't be as scary. But the fact that the lights were off and the story was so well presented, it made you feel like it was real. So they basically, I think that what they did was they just kind of dripped water on the back of your neck from the seats itself, and then they blew hot air
which is insane. Yeah. Like, in the reactions that this ride got were scarier reactions than I've ever heard on like any roller coaster. Like, I'm a diehard roller coaster junkie, and something like this would definitely scare me a lot more than any roller coaster would, just because of like the claustrophobic nature of it all. And like you said, how this very much is the ultimate sort of like, every part of the experience is done in your mind. I mean, the sound is what's kind of like leading you on, but really, you're not moving, you're not going anywhere. It's not like the room's in a centrifuge or anything like that.
Oh, no, you're down.
Yeah. Like, and so really just the whole attraction is just you sitting down and reacting to like this sound technology. And I feel like it's just so cutting edge. I feel like it was almost ahead of its time, especially at Disney. Because could you imagine what Universal could do with something like this? Because Universal is always the park where it's like they will take the thrill factor and just send it over the edge.
Oh, yeah. Now, if they had access to this kind of story, I can only imagine what they would do with it. Because I think for them, Universal is less afraid to go, like you said, to go over the edge. Where they're more
Halloween Horror Nights. I mean, come on, what more needs to be said?
Towards think teenagers in general, a lot of their attractions are more for older kids. I mean, they still have stuff for younger kids too, but I think the trends of it over the last few years is to make attractions A, 3D, B, more intense than the last one. And aside from, I guess, the Harry Potter Gringotts ride, which was kind of a step down from the Harry Potter Forbidden Journey ride.
I agree, but let's not get into that.
Yeah.
I spent the whole summer building up my anticipation for that and was let down.
Yeah, we didn't even. Yeah.
Okay, well, back to Alien Encounter though. Like I said, it really floors me just how much, like, because when you walk in, you see the that tube, but it's all vented up, it's all bolted up, and it's just your imagination, you know. And I would just assume that the moment that tube opens in the attraction, you're just like, okay, I know what's coming, and this isn't going to be good.
Yeah, you kind of get the sense of that from the pre-show when when Skippy didn't turn out so well from the teleportation.
Oh yeah.
And also from the attraction title itself, Terrorrestrial Alien Encounter.
So it really is like one of, I don't know, like I said, I definitely think it was ahead of its time in a way. And it's interesting because the article that you linked me to that I read, like, they said that it would have fit better into Disneyland, it would have fit better into MGM, it would have even maybe fit better into Epcot, but the reason why specifically Alien Encounter didn't work at Magic Kingdom was that Magic Kingdom was like the most sort of exclusively Disney park out of them all. Because Disneyland, you had Star Tours and you had Indiana Jones. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was kind of the argument. So what do you think? Do you think that if they would have, if it would have gone into Disneyland, it would still be there today? Because I'd like to think so. I genuinely like to think so.
I would hope so. But I guess with the track record, they still have Mr. Toad out there, right?
Hell yeah, they have Mr. Toad and original Tiki Room, and the Tiki Room never became under new management.
I feel like Disneyland does a better job of holding on to classics like that.
Yeah, we did lose our people movers though.
That is true.
Yeah.
Although it did become a pretty cool rocket rods ride for a while.
Don't even mention those rocket rods. That's the equivalent to like mentioning an abusive relationship. Oh, it was bad.
I feel like with the dark rides, especially in Disneyland has a lot more dark rides than Magic Kingdom does. They have.
Although to be fair, you guys do still have Country Bears as well.
That is true. So I guess it's not.
But we have Toad, so it kind of evens itself out in that way.
I guess you're right. It kind of evens out in regards to which park holds which. But I would hope that they would have still kept it, because I think it's something that's unique than any other ride, and it hasn't really been replicated or done better in any other way. And I guess
Country Bears.
What's that?
Are you talking Country Bears or Alien?
I was talking Alien Encounter.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was saying I would hope that Disneyland would hold on to it, because I think that could actually do a lot for Tomorrowland out there in general, because they do.
Yeah, definitely, because I think that Alien Encounter in general is a good attraction to have in the middle of your land to kind of pull the different themes and ideas together and make it a more cohesive kind of standalone, connected thing.
Yeah, if they go the route of making all of Tomorrowland the theme of Seize the Future, and kind of replicate it based on that, and kind of adjust some of the rides, because I know there was a rumor a while ago, I don't know if it still holds, because I think they wanted to remove the Autopia to put.
Yeah, I would definitely remove the Autopia.
Yeah, and then I guess that's kind of difficult, because you didn't have to either work around the monorail or adjust that somehow too.
There's a few kind of odd things, and also the sub lagoon is right underneath it as well.
Yeah, and originally
So you can't build anything too heavy on that area, because that's where the showroom for the sub lagoon is.
Right. So you don't want that crashing down.
Exactly. Yeah. That would be bad.
They originally wanted to put Star Wars Endor in that area, but now apparently they want to take away Toontown and put a Star Wars land there.
I would be so much better with Endor going into Tomorrowland than I would with Toontown, just because I feel like Toontown, it's like, could you imagine the transition from It's a Small World to Star Wars?
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
That would be such a glaring, like, what the hell is... I mean, okay, I've talked about this before, actually, and to me, the only reason they make it make sense is if you just blocked off that one entrance, you know, the entrance to get into Toontown, and went into the land from a completely different spot, but then the new land kind of spilled out into the old Toontown. You know what I mean? Like, let's say they kind of use some of the old Big Thunder Trail out in, you know, because that's like really one of the big unused spots in Disneyland is the Big Thunder Ranch and then the Feast of Fools Arena. So let's say they use those two things, kind of make it like a transitioning point into a big, massive Star Wars land. Use all that backstage area that spans, you know, like behind Fantasyland Theater and everything like that, and then tie that back into just the giant empty footprint you would have, taking out all of Toontown, and you're talking like a shit ton of real estate right there that you could develop on. What do you think?
Yeah.
I just don't think Toontown in general, like, my whole thing is just you just can't transition from It's a Small World to Star Wars. It's just impossible.
Yeah, they're gonna have, if they did that, they're gonna have to do that like they did with Diagon Alley in Hollywood in Universal, where they have giant buildings that are basically blocking the views to the other lands. Because other than that, but even
right, I hear you.
It's gonna be really choppy to go from.
That would throw off like the miniature scale of Small World, because the whole charm of the exterior of the Disneyland Small World is how it's just all these like miniature kind of like landmarks.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's no real easy way to do it. But let's get
to see the Matterhorn from somewhere too.
Wait, what about the Matterhorn?
I'd say you'd be able to see that too, possibly, if they.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, just fuck it. It's part of Hoffman now.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways. So let's get into the most maligned part of our history retrospective. Stitch's Great Escape. Yeah.
Yeah. So this one was a bit of a disappointment.
A bit, just a bit, just a bit.
When Alien Encounter closed on October 12th, 2003, and then Stitch, I think, opened up the next year, so it was November.
That's
16th.
Insane.
Yeah, so they didn't do much to the area except for repainting it blue. They made it a lot more. They made the show a lot more lighter and fun.
Color me shocked.
I wouldn't really call it fun. I would call it more comic relief. And a lot more light-hearted than the original incarnation. But yeah, it's basically, they also changed the name of the Interplanetary Convention Center to the Galactic Federation Prisoner Teleport Center or something like that. But yeah,
it's basically just a big reference to Lilo and Stitch. So it's like, okay, the Lilo and Stitch aliens are here on Tomorrowland now.
Yeah, it's taking the same concept, but adjusting it to bringing Stitch instead of someone from Excess.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, the ride itself, I mean, okay, one good thing I'll give props. Actually, a couple good things I'll give props to it. Skippy is actually still in the pre-show.
Yeah, that was a good Easter egg they had there.
Oh, yeah. Anything to talk about with that?
Not really. I mean, it's just the fact that he's still there.
Uh-huh. And then I guess when you get onto the ride itself,
I will
to
say,
the credit, the animatronic for Stitch is amazing,
I was just about to say that. That was one of the better animatronic. That's the one thing I will give the attraction is the animatronic Sitch is pretty cool.
which is really frustrating in the long run because you're
Yeah.
like, man, that's a really cool piece of technology that's in the middle of a really, really, really badly executed overall experience.
I kind of hope at one point if they ever change this attraction that they keep the animatronic and use it like they do in Toy Story Mania with Mr. Potato Head. Just use him in the queue, or just
Wait,
have
just
him
have
as a
Stitch in Toy Story?
no. I meant like use him in a different environment. Like use the animatronic in a different environment.
Oh, okay. So you like strip down the animatronic and like put it back together?
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. You can just take it off the, take it out of the when they if they ever redo the ride. I hope they
Mm.
keep the animatronic and use that somewhere else
Yeah, I hear you.
if
I hear you.
possible, because that's a really
And
cool.
I also like the look of the cannons that are coming down and circling around Stitch. I also think that's visually kind of interesting.
Yeah, they did adjust that a little bit. But yeah, the look of the theater is very sleek, and
Uh-huh.
I even one of the pictures in the video, the trailer video for this session, was a pretty cool shot of the inside of the theater. It's very blue, bright blue colors.
Appropriate with Stitch.
Yeah, but it was pretty well designed. I'll give them that too. Other than that, though, I can't really talk about chili
Chili
dog
dogs.
for a
Chili
while.
dog. Chili dogs. I mean, basically, I read the article and I just heard that once they go to black, it's just a bunch of silly humor and chili dog belches, and I'm like, I can't handle that. I can't handle that. That's too that's just below me.
Yeah, it was kind of disappointing, but
Yeah.
there's only so much that you can ask for, I guess. I mean, they could have made a decent attraction, but they wanted.
I think if they would have done it like just do it like they were gonna do it and not have the toilet humor in there. That
Yeah, I mean,
alone would have approved it.
yeah, I mean, there's plenty of attractions that use children's characters that are still really
Mhm.
fun, and they don't have to you know decline into burps and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's like Star Wars Episode 1 territory right there.
Yeah, you're going to, let's not even.
Yosa. I actually just watched the People versus George Lucas documentary today, so that's very fresh in my mind. Okay, I guess, yeah, obviously Stitch's Great Escape. It's funny because it's now been there longer than Alien Encounter was, so yeah, that's kind of messed
Coming
up.
up on its actually just had its 10th anniversary last November.
You want to talk about England's favorite thing in the world, which is the TP Castle,
What's that?
the toilet paper castle.
In the ride?
No, the castle. Stitch vandalized Cinderella's castle.
I know what you're saying. Oh yeah, that was
Yeah.
that was I don't know if that was worse than the birthday cake castle, but that was pretty close. I don't like it.
It's a hard call because it's like with that, it's almost just a slap in the face. But I just think the birthday cake castle just looks so tacky that it's a hard call either way. They were both horrible.
I think I'm trying to remember how long that was up for.
I want to say the birthday castle was up for longer, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, people might have. I'm trying to look. I feel like it was up. It had to have been up for at least a year because that was the 25th anniversary.
Oh dear.
I don't know how long the Stitch graffiti stuff was up. I just know
I want to say the Stitch graffiti stuff was kind of up for more of like like for a few months for a promotion, but that's just what memory is telling me. And again, I wasn't really following Disney World as much as I was following Disneyland, so I could be very mistaken on this. But But yeah, just what was your reaction to that? To the toilet paper castle?
Yeah, it was a little bit tacky. A little bit more than tacky. I think I liked the like I didn't like the wand that was up on Spaceship Earth. I was really happy when they took that down. The big one that said
You know,
Epcot.
I'm sure you were a big fan of the sorcerer's hat.
Oh yeah, that was my that was my all-time. But I'm
It's
just
kind
glad.
of strange that they never put any sort of like tacky thing on the Tree of Life.
Well, they do have nets now that are
Wait,
catching.
what?
Yeah, they had that. I don't know if they still have it, but they had it for a while. Stuff was falling off of the tree, so they had to put nets below it to catch falling debris.
Well, I mean that's fine as long as it's not like super tacky.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I just I don't understand why stuff's falling off.
Yeah. All right. Anyways, I guess to wrap
Yeah.
it up, can't really talk about this too much, just because I feel like it's kind of like the basis of the whole project. But just from you personally, sir, kind of speaking to all of us as players in the creator games, what do you want to see utilized with this building? How do we go about creating an adequate attraction that would be a good spiritual successor here?
Well, one of the things that we wanted to focus on in this challenge, and actually the whole games in general, is a sense of realism. So we wanted to, I think one of the main criteria that we wanted to emphasize was that we wanted you to keep the building itself intact. So you can change the queue, you can change the insides of the theaters, whatever you want, but we want you to keep the main focus of that to be an interactive theater experience, because that's basically what all of these incarnations have been. It's really just an alternation of stuff inside of an already built theater. So that's I guess number one. But number two is to use creativity. It's fine if you use an IP, just as long as the IP fits into where you're putting it. Like if you're putting Monsters Inc., Monsters University right across from the lab floor, that's not going to be as good as something more thought out, like a time keeper type attraction. So yeah, but really for this one, it's all about getting your feet wet in the competition. There's not going to be very harsh grading criteria. Just do a project. I guess. Don't let it go to waste.
Yeah.
Because I think everyone's had a lot of time for this one.
Oh yeah, we've definitely had a lot of time. I will admit it took quite a while for me to really marinate on what I wanted to do, but now that I do have my concept down and I know what I want to do with it, I'm really excited about it. So
yeah. And I guess that's the hardest part, that starting off after everyone's been kind of rusty, maybe coming from not doing a competition in a while to maybe having a few weeks off. Everyone needs some time.
Of course.
Things. So
it should be fun. When are the projects due? They are due on May the 4th, right?
So May the 4th, we'll put a reminder in tomorrow for all the time zones.
Okay, so that is Monday.
So Monday the 4th at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So 4 p.m. for you guys.
Okay, cool.
And also for anyone in Europe would be I think it's like 6 or 7 hours ahead of 7 p.m. So we'll just put a reminder of that.
So that'll definitely be exciting. England and I are actually going to do a May the 4th Star Wars special thing, but you guys will find out about that soon enough. But we will be getting back together very soon after the projects are graded and whatnot to kind of go over the events of the first project. I'm assuming that's the next video you want to do.
Yeah, actually, we were planning on actually giving the results that night. We wanted to just sit down and do the reviews and then just get the next session out right away. That night,
but we should definitely do a review, just recapping all the projects of the first project. And that'll be like in between when the next project's due, for sure. Okay, yeah. So I think he cut out, but that's okay because we were just about to finish anyways.
Here
So,
I am again.
Oh no, okay.
That's a good
Yeah. All right. So Spacebound, you have any final words before we sign off on this first Creator Games profile on Alien Encounter?
No, this was good. Hopefully, we can get a lot more participation in this as well. If anyone wants to do this, I think it's a good thing for the games in general. It brings a new sort of variable into it, and it gives people a lot of historical.
It's not necessarily a variable into the game itself. It's more just like something more to look forward to. An added multimedia component. It just boosts the production in general.
I mean, like a plus to the game itself.
For sure.
Something to add on so that people give a little bit more retrospective into what they're actually doing.
Right. And as always, guys, if you do want to come on and do one of these things, feel free to message either myself or Space Mountain or IDI, and we will be happy to accommodate you because we want to get as many people on these shows as possible, doing the retrospectives and stuff. We really want to make this into an event. So, all right, Space Mountain, thank you for coming on, and I think this was a really good show. And yeah, any last words of advice for your 16 contestants?
Just do your best. We're not gonna be too picky. So if this is your first challenge or first competition, don't freak out. It's not a big deal.
I'm totally freaked out, Space Mountain. I am freaking out right now.
Everyone will be fine.
All right, so on behalf of WDWMagic.com, I would like to, officially just give a shout out to them and, go to that site to get great Walt Disney World information and news and whatnot. And also head over to the forums and you'll find a forum marked specifically Imagineer. That's where this business is going down. Competitions, open brainstorming, discussions like this that we're having, a whole podcasting community that's sort of opening up. It's insane, isn't it, Space Mountain?
It's pretty insane.
All right, so yeah, head on over to the WDW Magic Imagineering forums. We'll see you there. And in the meantime, I am terrified of what's to come. We'll see.